this to do what I want it to do. Can y'all see?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. We'll just do it this way. Okay, so thanks for, you can see the presentation that says supported employment educational support. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. So supported employment and educational services is a rebranding of what we've had as an offering to our community all along around vocational support. What we're trying to do with a bit of rebranding is highlight that we also provide support around educational goals, which, as we know, lead to a higher likelihood of securing good employment. So our mission is to improve health outcomes by helping patients with a mental health diagnosis meet their employment and or educational goals, while also increasing patient engagement in meaningful activities. We know that if folks can have the support around their goals, they also create a life with more meaning for themselves. We also like to support and provide individualized, community-based, and integrated services. So looking at the person as a whole, as opposed to a piece of the person. We also take into consideration our contract with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So every referral we get is screened for appropriateness to participate in DVR, as well as Medicaid. Our policies that we follow are to strive for flexibility in how patients are referred and provided services. So we realize that every individual is unique, and so we want to meet them where they need to be met at their level of engagement and where they are in their process. We also strive to provide appropriate services who are both internally and externally referred to our program. So what that means is that our program is a wraparound program for all our outpatient teams, whether it's mental health, substance use, dual diagnosis, assertive community treatment, and so on. And then we also receive referrals from external sources and partners. That can be from housing, it can be from a myriad, obviously, of community resources can refer to our program. We do strive to fulfill all documentation requirements, and we also strive to coordinate and communicate with our referral sources. So trying to coordinate those services and such. And then, like I said previously, we do evaluate all referrals for the Colorado Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services and possible Fund 7 eligibility. So our referral process is pretty simple. We have a 2-page piece of paperwork that outlines what services a patient might be needing, what is the priority, where are they in their process of educational and or employment goals. There's no restriction on how referrals can be made, either from the community or within our own agency. And they are made directly to our supported employment and educational specialist, who will arrange for a patient to receive a mental health assessment and enrollment with ACCESS if they're not currently enrolled. Our employment specialist, or I'm trying to get used to my new terminology that I developed. Our supported employment and educational support specialist is Jody Miller. She was going to be attending with me this evening, but she may have gotten delayed. I'm not sure.
I'm here, Shelley.
Oh, there you are. Good. Thank you for speaking up. So the basic requirement is for a patient to be enrolled at ACCESS and complete an assessment for treatment recommendations, one of which can be supported employment and educational support. So that's the biggest thing, is if you make a referral and they're already enrolled with ACCESS, then we just wrap this program around their existing services. If not, Then our master's level clinicians will do an assessment and make any recommendations, including for vocational support. Again, they're screened for appropriateness of employment and educational support other than services offered by Access Health System, and they are screened at no charge for DVR services and support. So some of the things that we can do around supporting employment goals is help patients build resumes, create cover letters, help them learn the process of how to search for a job and how to interview for a job, as well as looking at disability referrals. And then once someone does get a job, how do they maintain and keep that job and retain it? We don't just drop the ball after they get employed, but we continue to provide support services on helping them retain that position. And some of the things that we can do around that is appropriate relationship modeling, mediation and conflict resolution, job stability training. Again, we continue our service coordination with our local DVR office, and we also work with benefits education, work on benefits education with Southwest Center for Independence. Jody, have I left anything else off around employment services and support?
No, you haven't, but the next slide talks about what people can do in order to get to that vocational point.
Thank you for the segue. So some of the things that we can do, or Jody can do, offering support around educational goals. And just FYI, Jody can work with adolescents and young adults as well. So someone being in high school, that's a great time to intervene and provide some support, because as we know, our adolescents are preparing for adulthood, and part of that is reaching their educational and employment goals. So resourcing for GED, college applications, meeting with college advisors, college disability service referrals, applying for financial aid, coordinating services with SWAP, which is the School to Work Alliance program, and then coordinating with school counselors and offering supportive aid advocacy. Jody, what else?
Just to give an example of these resources, I'm currently working with a client who is 16 and getting ready to graduate and had no plans on going to college. And once I started to talk to her, that was a major goal that she had. So, and I was meeting with her mom as well. And just having somebody to navigate the system for them, like the first step would be applying for their FAFSA. The next step would be applying for the school and then meeting with their advisor. Just having that extra person to help them through those barriers is beneficial to the client, and having success around school and then eventually gainful employment.
Awesome. So then we want to make sure that we are also closing the loop with coordination and communication with our referral sources. So Jody attends and participates in regularly scheduled meetings with our local DVR office, at least monthly, if not weekly and daily sometimes, to coordinate and communicate around shared cases, and also to prevent duplication of services and help our patients meet their goals. For other, and then also Jody attends at least 3 weekly different team meetings here at Access, the different teams that we have, outpatient teams, so that she can keep a finger on the pulse for upcoming referrals, give report out on current cases and statuses of where they are in their process, and then also make other recommendations to our teams. And then for outside referrals, Jody will continue to coordinate care with other external sources, such as primary care providers, community behavioral health providers, folks who are in private practice, patient family members, high school and college personnel, employers, housing programs, and probation officers as needed or indicated. Part of Jody's job as well is to develop jobs in our community. So she's constantly meeting and touching base with employers, finding those job opportunities that will be the right fit for our patients and our cases. So that is a quick overview of our program. We would love to answer some questions for you. it's just important to remember that employment and educational support is a part of the recovery process. And we know from evidence and research that if someone has some building blocks, such as an established education or established employment, they'll have better outcomes in their overall health and behavioral health. So with that being said, we would love to answer some questions if you have some.
Thank you. This is Councilman Dobry. I just have two quick things. Can you share that presentation with Linda so she can get it out to the whole council?
Yes, I will put that on my to-do list for sure.
Thank you.
And we can also send you the referral paperwork if you're interested.
Okay. And the other thing, I just wondered how does this program interact with substance and alcohol abuse? Do you work with people kind of to get them back into education and the workforce after with substance and alcohol issues as well?
So I'm glad you asked, because the majority of the clients I do work with are in our SUDS program, which is substance use disorder. So the idea around that is if somebody is employed, they have something in their life to work towards, something to look forward to, instead of always focusing on that substance use. I also work a lot in Durango with Hilltop. If you guys know what that is, it's our halfway house between jail and release. And a lot of those individuals struggle with substance abuse as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Shelley. This is Mayor Levy. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. Do you envision yourself working with the bridge shelter, for the people that are in the transitional housing?
So I'm trying to make sure I understood you correctly. You're wondering if we work with transitional housing and the bridge. Is that correct?
Yeah, the bridge shelter is a homeless shelter.
That we would definitely be open to working with folks participating in that program. Not a problem. Again, we would just need to make sure that the person is enrolled for services at Axis so that we can wrap around this program. This program is not a standalone program unless a person has completed all their treatment recommendations and may still have to finish up some work in supported employment and educational services. But yes, we're open to working with transitional housing and at the bridge.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Councilwoman Medina. Thank you again. So if our employers who are looking for, employees, they have job openings, so they can come to you to fill those positions, and do you guys provide references for folks who go through this program?
Jody?
Oh, most definitely. It makes it so much easier when we have employers that are willing and open to work with us. That way we can plug people right in. And yes, we do references for our clients.
Great. And then one last question for me. And then do you work with the social services department at the county?
I'm sure we could. I'm not sure if we have, but that's definitely a partnering agency with other existing programs at Axis. So I would venture to say we'd be open to working and coordinating services for mutual patients, and definitely.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from council? Orly, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. The question he asked if they help those other agencies. That's what I was wondering too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No more questions. Thank you very much, Shelley. We appreciate your presentation, and I think this is a wonderful program for our community, and it's very important to have educational and employment as part of the recovery system. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, and I'll get the information sent to Linda.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Okay, next item on the agenda is a library expansion consideration update. Library Director Alicia Gamori-Lister. Good evening, Alicia.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. I did send you guys quite a bit of information, including the master plan for the library expansion. So I think really, just for a little background and context, this initiative was started with the prior director, and he did a community needs assessment, put together this plan for a potential library expansion. When I first came in June, I got quite a few questions from staff as well as patrons. Everybody seemed really excited about the potential for this expansion. So in the meantime, we do have another group that also has plans for the same plot of land. So really, I think the conversation is, do you guys, what's a priority? Do you want the library expansion? Do you want plans to go ahead with, trying to find funding and a timeline and all of those sorts of things? Or will this other project take precedence? I think it's been pretty confusing for a lot of the staff members at the library, as well as some city employees. So I want to open it up to questions for you guys. And I do have a couple of other folks here in case you guys do have questions about both projects kind of coexisting in the same place. So I'm going to open it to questions from you guys.
Okay, this is Councilwoman Medina. After being here for a year, what do you think of the expansion? Do you think it's needed? Do you think the plans are good? I guess, what is your professional opinion?
I think it's an amazing opportunity. I think that definitely the city in general and sort of as a whole, we're really lacking meeting space. I think libraries, especially our library, would be a great way. The plans, if you were able to look through those, it had quite a bit of 2 meeting space rooms that could accommodate, I think it was somewhere between 150 and 200 people. I think that would be an amazing opportunity, not just for the library, but just for community meeting space. And that's really what a library needs to be, is the community hub. There was also opportunity for a business incubator. So we're talking about space for folks to come that don't have their own dedicated space. So if people are starting their own business or doing startups or community collaboration, it's a really amazing way to afford people the opportunity to not have to pay for space, so they can come, they can use the internet, they can use the resources that we have. So I think that those are all really great attributes of this plan. A makerspace was another really great addition. My prior position, the district that I came from, we had several of our libraries had makerspaces, and it's a great way, again, for people to be able to just come and get things done. Be creative, come up with business plans. So yeah, I do think it's a really great idea, and I think it's very needed. Our library is amazing. It's got a great staff. There's a lot of great things about it, but we do have some work to do to catch up with technology. It's a great need in this area, and we really are that place and that resource for people to be able to come, that can't afford internet, that can't afford their own technology, to really just have that space to be able to just get everyday business done. So yeah, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of really great things about it.
Thank you.
This is Councilwoman Yazzie. I have a question for John. What would funding look like for the library expansion? When would we get those grants or those monies?
We haven't even looked into that yet. Because we don't have our audits, we can't go for any grants, so we haven't even looked into it. Nor have we gotten priority from council, because as you're well aware, there's a lot of big expenditures, but we can't do them all. Because the table, we're just limited on how much more money we can take in, or if any, so I think after the study was done, it essentially got shelved, and we haven't picked it back up.
Okay, and then what would, so, like, my question essentially was like, we wouldn't be able to access any sort of grant funding to pay for this project for the most part.
We haven't looked into it, but
Because of our
audit, I don't know that we're a couple years away from going to grants.
Okay, and then for I'm assuming it's the band shell project, that's the completing project. What would fundraising look for that? Because there's a committee that's working together to bring this project to fruition. We wouldn't have to contribute any monies towards that project.
Currently, the last council told them, go raise the money, you don't depend on any money from the city. And since then, Dean has requested that they also include an endowment for maintenance of this band shell, that the city doesn't want to take that on also. But as far as I know, they've raised a little money, I guess, to pay the architect, but they're waiting for plans, and they will be on the council agenda when they get the plans to me, so you guys can have them ahead of time. And I believe he's working on the next council meeting to come and talk to you, but at that point, I guess he wants to show you the plans and say, can we put it here before we go out and lobby for money. I have brought up that at some point, probably before they go raising money, they need to go talk to the neighbors and see if the neighbors are going to be on board with this or not. Because I don't believe it's just going to be Sunday afternoons. I think once it's there, it's going to be very attractive and everybody's going to want to be using it, I hope. So it's going to be Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Sundays.
Okay, thank you.
Alicia, this is Mayor Levy. Were you able to look at the plans for the expansion of the library before you came on board with the city of Cortez?
It was just put on my radar when I started. I mean, literally my first day, people were asking me what was going on with the library expansion. I think that the important thing about this particular plan was it had a lot of community input. If you read the first part of this master plan, you'll see that the community came together for quite a few meetings. And, I think that's the important thing to remember is that this space, the goals of this space are to find opportunities to utilize our outdoor space, designing for safety and inclusion, flexibility to look forward while staying connected. And then really the most important thing that I got out of this master plan was a commitment to a master plan that was designed by the community. So I think that those are all really important things. I think the bandshell project wasn't really on the radar when this master plan was made, but through my 9 months here, and just through those meetings, it's become very apparent that the conflict is the space, it's the plot of land. So I think it's just really important that one is going to have to take precedence over the other, and a decision is going to have to be made at some point of what is more important. But to have both sort of out there, I think has been kind of contentious and really confusing.
Thank you.
There's one thing that comes up when folks are looking at the competing plans. I mean, this has got some way of explaining this is if you put the band shell in, you're pretty much dooming any library expansion to the north. It's not going to happen. You would be required to take out the football courts or do something like that, and that's kind of not going to be a popular decision. So I mean, that's what this is a legal matter and policy matter getting down to. Are you gonna limit expansion of the library by putting something in the way? Even if you can't afford to do it in the next 2 to 3 years, if you wanna do it, you win the lotteries, as they say, as a joke, or something happens that you fall into money and you can do this, and you put the band shell there, your library's done. There probably isn't room to do all of this in that space. That's your decision, is, you know, what goes where and what are the consequences if you put something in.
Mike, have they looked at the possibilities of having enough room between the proposed band shell location and the library expansion? I understood there's enough room for both of them.
I'm not of the understanding there is, that it's gonna be one or the other when you move the band shell further north or you put it someplace different. I'm not 100% sure you can do both in there. And that's, John might have a better idea of that, my understanding was, and I just wanted to be blunt about it, so that you knew that you could be limiting library expansion in the future if you put the band shell where the band shell people were talking about putting it. They are right on top. This is John Doherty, the city manager. They are right on top of each other. But I think right now, the biggest issue is Tracy needs to come up with how much additional parking is needed. Because when I saw the overlay of where the parking is going to be, it's right on top of the restrooms. And she said, I don't know that that's enough parking. So I don't know where they're going to put additional parking if they have to have even more. The parking is also going to be an issue for them. There's a lot of things that they want to compete with when the city just wants to maintain what we have. And so I'm not saying I'm not going one way or another, but this is a little bit more in depth and problematic than just saying, yeah, put a band shell in here. There was also some discussion on how it would change the topography, how it would change the number of trees there, some of the reasons they wanted to be there. And there's a lot more than, you know, the band shell is a wonderful thing, don't get me wrong, but do we want to limit? It's one of our premier, institutions, installations, things we offer the citizens in this area, our library. And do we want to, you know, as a policy matter, curtail its growth as a physical point?
And there are alternate locations that are being proposed as well, based on the Parks and Rec meetings that I've been attending. So
There have been 2 alternates proposed and they've rejected those. The band shell committee.
how recent was that?
The last proposal was I don't even know what to call it, shelter at, over here in, Parque Davida. They looked at that, wasn't there a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and said no. We also suggested Veterans Park, and the architect and the committee looked at that, and they decided no on that one too, primarily because of traffic.
Okay, well, based on the last advisory meeting, which was last Friday, like it sounded like we were gonna talk about, like they were gonna put to council about which location would be preferred. So I don't know if that's changed, if like their decision has changed since the last 2 weeks, since a couple of weeks ago when you guys talked about it.
In the email strings I've seen, they haven't changed their mind, they still want next to the library. And I have requested and will have for you at the next meeting, larger map to show you how close on top of each other they would be. Just so you can get a visual.
Arlene, has the council or has the committee discussed the South Park option?
I don't believe so.
That was the original request, and that was made roughly a year ago. Bob Wagner, when they were doing the neighborhood meetings over at Southside Park, I believe the last one that was there, we were talking about when this was going to be kicking off and things. Bob proposed it to Dean, and Dean said, no, this park's already planned, we can't go in here. So then they started searching, and that's when they decided that would be the next location.
That is an interesting concept to look at as, again, a policy for that park, how to develop it. If that's your, lack of better word, your entertainment park, where people go, there's more than adequate parking there. From all the land use things, that park has a lot of options for a lot of different uses. And re-gentrify a different part of town, make it, more palatable or whatever, just, people who don't go there because of there's nothing there. And I think, you've talked about we need a park in the south. And if you had a focus for it, it might just help it. Don't know. These are policy decisions for you guys to figure long term. They don't have a lot of short term implications. It's long term.
To get back to the library, do we, this may be for John and for Alicia, is there any
Phil
plan?
Johnson has his hand raised.
Yeah, I think Phil wanted to chime in as well.
Is there any planning to, for phasing, like doing, because the statement of cost, it breaks down a new construction portion and a renovation portion. Has there been any planning about doing one section as phase one and then another section as phase two, which would certainly make it easier for the city to pay for it over a longer period of time?
That is completely all on the table. We do have some fairly large capital projects that need to be done that could kind of be all rolled into one. This for me was just a starting point, this master plan, but it's definitely flexible within this master plan. And if, doing smaller projects works better, obviously financially, yeah, that's absolutely a feasible consideration.
Thank you.
Alicia, we have a question from Phil Johnson. Phil, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to share a visual that you can see the existing footprint of the library, the proposed expansions as a part of that overall project, as well as the impact of an expansion of parking with the proposed location of the band shell, if you'd like to see it.
Please.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, let me know when you can see it and if that's large enough. I'm gonna have to move it around. Can everybody see that?
We can see it.
Okay, so you can, in the bottom of the picture is Montezuma, and as you can see, the pickleball courts to the east there. The existing footprint of the library is gray. The pink dashed lines are the proposed expansions in the area. And then looking to the north, this parking space, the 50 parking space expansion is to really kind of middle of the ground with these meeting spaces and proposed uses of the library. Of course, this would have to be refined based on the final design. But you can see now, I scroll up a little more with the proposed band shell location and how what Alicia is talking about is competing land for both of these projects. So I just wanted you all to be able to look at that and, kind of quantify visually what we're talking about.
Phil, can you share that with us by email as well?
I'm sorry, sir?
Can you share that with us by email as well? That now.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So looking at this map, this is Councilwoman Nancy, so looking at this map and considering the additional parking spaces needed, do we have, could we make a consideration for less parking spaces with that addition? It's to John or whoever wants to answer.
Well, Tracy's got her hand up.
I think I refer to the city attorney. I really would caution against that. If you do that, then other people point to you and say, well, you did it for you can do it for me.
Nobody's really presented me or told me exactly how many parking places the band shell has to have, plus the parking places for the library, plus the parking places for the park use. So you're starting to build a pretty big parking lot. The reason I'm kind of implying here is my understanding, without really seeing everything really in depth, was we were gonna lose parking places if we put the band shell where they wanted to because of the proposed driveway. I thought that went across our existing parking lot, and so we would lose those parking places. And so there aren't that many on the other side of the park, over on Mildred. There aren't that many other places available to put parking if you want to keep a park instead of turning it, as John Mitchell said, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. That's what we'd be doing, is losing a lot of grass area for all the parking requirements. If we waive them on our own, and yeah, we can probably do that. Number one, are we really doing ourselves a favor? Are we really, where are all these people going to park? Are the neighbors going to get mad because suddenly there's all sorts of people parked on their street and we're going to get complaints there? Do we even have adequate street parking? These are all questions that I want to know before I suggested whether we look at waiving it. But John's got the real reason. Okay, if we do this for us, and I come in as an individual citizen with something, and says I need 40 parking places. Come on, guys, look what you did for yourself. That is a concern, but I'm not sure. Like I said, the parking is decimated over there if we follow the plan of the band shell. There's a lot more work needs to be done about parking, even when we know what we need for that.
We hear from Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy, do you have some input on this? Tracy Hughes?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, the parking calculation is actually a 3-page document where I kind of covered all the bases on how to get to that 50 parking space number. And I just want to make it clear that the library expansion's proposing 2 community rooms that would hold a total of 170 people. And if you look at places of assembly, the parking calculation for that is 1 space per 4 seats. So based on that number specifically, on the best day, if all people are carpooling, that would require 42 spaces. So the 50 spaces is kind of what we would probably apply to someone outside of the city for a place of assembly. And so I just wanted to make that clear. That's where that number comes from. And yes, there's, things we could discuss regarding the parking and, considering shared parking. However, none of this contemplates parking for the band shell and concurrent uses. So I think this is just an important picture that you need to be aware of. Until we know exactly where parking's going to go, I think there is a competition for the space. And so that's all I wanted to say, just to clarify that number.
This is Councilmember Huckins. Just looking at that map, it looks like we're switching a lot of
it's only on the first row that you have to worry about that.
into one area. Now, if I could speak to
but you do want them to
Bill Johnson and
push over the top
whoever has their
in the same direction.
microphone.
So that's the walk. Now you don't have to use t-shirt fabric for the walk. I just choose to do it because I don't really want to use
Talk a little bit about
it isn't a
part.
it does struggle, though using
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, I could not hear you. Someone was unmuted. Could you repeat that, please?
Thank you so much, and thank you to the person for muting. I was just trying to pick your brain about the plans for the South Park, and in reference to, it sounds like the plans are pretty solidified. I have interest in, dispersing activity across the city, in reference to, potentially putting a band shell there. Could you speak about that?
Well, I could, but Dean Palmquist is here and he went through that whole vetting process with the community and South Park, and I would rather yield the floor to him, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me, City Council? This is Dean Palmquist, the Parks and Rec Director.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we went through a really thorough process, and I think some of this was timing when Bob Wagner, we were in meeting 3 of the conceptual design to get the park finalized, and so it was we had already come through and designed all the features. So it was kind of at the last meeting that he brought this forward. So we had already made and I can show the council at another meeting about the master plan and what is all in the park, but pretty much through a really thorough process of community engagement with 3 public meetings had come up with what was going to be in the park. And I felt at that point that we weren't doing justice to the people that went through the public process. And then at the very tail end, we make a huge change of a band shell when we have all these other park amenities in there based off of the public input. So it was just one of those timing things. And then after talking to Bob Wagner more about having the band shell in the other park, I think the concern came up to be that he wanted the band shell in a park that had mature trees and adequate shade. And that's been one of the drivers of why they've wanted at Centennial Park and maybe not some of the other parks beyond. I mean, Veterans Park has adequate shade, but the traffic. So I think that was one of the drivers of where they'd come to on having it at Centennial Park was the shade trees.
Dean, one of my concerns, this is Councilman Dobry, about the South Park and maybe having some flexibility on what we end up doing with it is right now it's not a park at all. It's not really a public space, and we have to figure out funding to be able to do something. And I realized that there was that process gone through by the previous council to get community input, but with the state of audits and our ability to get grants and we have no idea what DOLA grants will look like 2 or 3 years from now. I think we do need to have some flexibility on bringing other features or some kind of interim program there that maybe that it would include a band shell, maybe that would include a walking path. I mean, I just think we need to have some more flexibility on what we end up doing there, because we have to remember that right now we're not doing anything there.
Right, and I'm hopeful the plan is next year we do get the phase 1A completed, with because I think our holdup has been because of the audits and not having the conservation trust funds available to us to use those match dollars. That's primarily what the holdup has been, is waiting for those conservation trust funds to open up once there's enough audits completed. So yeah, no, I think Councilman Dobry, we can sure look at that and substitute out. I think that's the good thing about that master plan, is if there is an area that has a public outcry for a band shell or whatnot, I mean, we can substitute out, say we have 2 bicycle skill courses. Maybe one of the bicycle skill courses can go away and we substitute the band shell in its place. So that is, I'm definitely, that's flexible to have that happen if that's the will of the people, and of the council.
This is Councilwoman Yazzie. I have a quick question for John. Okay, so did when did the plan, like this master plan for the library come into existence?
It was being finished up when I got here in 2018.
Okay, and then when did the plan for the band shell come into existence?
Probably well after that, at least a year after that.
Okay, I'm inclined to say that the priority should go to the library for that space, because that community engagement started sooner and their plan was developed sooner than the band shell project. And I know it might be a pain, but maybe we need to look at a different location for the band shell project. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up the timeline on that, Councilman Yazzie, that was great. I would also like to bring up that in Montezuma Park, there was just recently finished a stage, and that entire park is trees and shaded. So potentially that could satiate a daytime, daytime band being in Montezuma Park.
I also just want to say, this is Medina, with the library expansion, and I feel like we do need to leave space for that, even if it doesn't happen now, maybe 10, 20 years from now. And with the parking, I want a landscaped parking lot as well with shade. So that's going to take up some spots. So I just want to throw that out there.
So John, I just wanted to confirm, we'll be hearing from the band shell committee at our next regular meeting.
I would anticipate, I got a hold of Bob and conveyed what the council wants ahead of time. And he said he wasn't going to be able to get it for this meeting, but he would get a hold of the architect, and he thought he would get it for the next meeting. And I just told him, as soon as you get it to us, then we'll get you on the agenda, but I can't put you on until I have that, so I can do it to council ahead of time. Thank you.
Happens here, if we are, putting in our intentions towards library expansion or not, my leaning would be definitely 100% towards supporting library expansion. I feel that, having a community space for our citizens is paramount.
This is Councilwoman Yazzie. I feel like we need to honor the community members that have put effort into both of these projects, and I certainly appreciate the work that's been put into them. And it, we may not have the ideal plan, but there's other ways we can support, like finding the location for the bench shell project. I think we should do that.
I'd like to hear from Bob Wagner next time, see his points, because it sounded like it didn't look like there was going to be a conflict with the expansion and the band shell. It might be the parking lot issue seemed to be the drawback tonight. So I'd like to hear from Bob and the architect also next council meeting.
Councilman Rainey here. I think usage should be considered also. The library is used far more frequently than a band shell would be. So I think it's, with that in mind, it should be given some priority also.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a few comments on or questions on it. Like the band shell there, there's a good question there on the band shell. What's, like I said, what does it have to do with the library? Because the library is, it's 12 months out of the year, and the band shell won't be. I mean, but also too is the expansion on that library. Could it go in phases? When there's so much money gets raised, they do a phase, then so much money that gets raised, do another phase instead of doing everything at once.
I definitely think that this is Alicia again. I think that could definitely be part of the plan. Chris Burkett, I have been talking to him about potential funding. He was going to be here tonight, but I think he was having some issues getting logged in. But yeah, I think that the plan can be really flexible. I think it's important to just, you know, have a decision like, yes, this is something we want to move forward with, and then have a timeline and a plan, an action plan that supports that. And yes, with the cost, and like I said, we do have some fairly large capital projects that are going to have to be done in the next couple of years, including the HVAC system and the roof, as well as some building maintenance type things with the stucco. So yeah, smaller projects could definitely be built into that, but I think it's just important, you know, that a decision is made. This is, you know, we're going to use this land for this, and this is how we're going to go about it. So I really appreciate everybody's input and thoughtfulness. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for your presentation, Alicia. Next item on the agenda is discussion on new business 6D regarding landscape maintenance service bids. Director of Parks and Recreation, Dean Conquest.
Yes, I'd like to bring up about the subdivision landscaping maintenance services. We did receive a bid, and it came in at about 62 or 6,300, and that was, we anticipated it coming in about 8,400. So it came in lower than what we anticipated. And so if you see in the memo that the cost were reduced a little bit on what we looked at, what the cost would be to the residents. And so it's just following up to see if this is something the council would like to move forward with. Again, the main primary objective of having this as a contractual service is, I think, twofold. One, that the park maintenance crew can spend more time back into the park system. And I think number two is the residents of each one of these subdivisions have a guaranteed weekly lawn care that sometimes with the park maintenance, there's other priorities that take precedence. So we can't sometimes always get to the subdivisions on a weekly basis. So if you see it, it shows that if we were to go with Brandon's Gate, I have a couple fees. If we were to go with just the housing, the households, it would go from $693 to $1,767 per month for Brandon's Gate, which in the parentheses, that's $212.04 for the year. And then the rodeo subdivision, the monthly fee from $5, which would be $60 a year, to $13.92, $167.04 a year. So that's quite a substantial increase when you look at that. But if we were to go to lots, and again, the lots were 106 lots for Brandon's Gate, and then 30 lots for rodeo subdivision. And if we were able to divide those, two of those larger lots into actually household lots, it would probably be around 64 lots. But at this point, I'm not sure if we can do that or not. So I left it at 30 lots at the present time, with the prospects maybe it could go to 64. You know, if we were to divide all that out. And so with that said, the Brandon's Gate would be actually go from $6.93 to $5.50. So that it would actually be a decrease if we could go to the lot method of collecting the money. So there's actually would reduce from $6.93 to $5.50. Rodeo subdivision would increase from $5 which would be $60 a year, to $10.20 a month to $122.40. And so I did want to add to this discussion. I called one of the residents of the Southern Bluffs just to find out what are their homeowners association dues. And I found out that their annual dues there are $350. They pay close to $30 a month for their homeowners association dues there at Southern Bluffs, just to see ballpark wise, what does this mean if we're charging these increased fees for these two subdivisions? And I do want to mention with Southern Bluffs, that would also include free use of their community room. So, you may want to take off $100 a year or something from each for that. So say it was even $250 a year, and then they have some snow removal along with that. But I thought for discussion purposes, that would be to know what another subdivision has to pay for homeowners association dues. So I guess I would, at this point, open it up for discussion.
So Dean, one of the issues that we talked about at the previous meeting was related to some of the larger lots versus some of the larger lots. In this cost breakdown, is that just lots as they are, or is that lots like the subdividable ones being charged multiples, or how is that broken down in this?
Councilman Dobry, I just left it right now. The 106 lots at Brandon's Gate, they have broken it out into actual household lots, where Rodeo, there's 2 lots that they have not broken those down. And I think we're still working through like planning department and whatnot to see if those bigger lots could be broken down into smaller household lots. And I don't know that unless the city manager, John Doherty, has an answer. I was just kind of leaving that open still for further investigation.
Dean, you mentioned Southern Bluffs.
Yes.
Under dues and whatever, but that's not just the grass maintenance, but that's streets and all, ain't that correct?
That is for the grass maintenance and the utilities with that. It would also be for snow removal, and it would be for their community room, that $350. And I don't know that they have a breakdown, how that's broken out through their dues or not. I just wanted to base, I just don't know that there's a lot of other comparisons in Cortez for homeowners associations. There might be some out there. It's just one I knew that existed.
Okay, that was just going to say that, because that wouldn't be not a useful, useful tool on that part. But okay, thanks.
You bet.
Dean, this is Councilmember Huggins. What is the benefit or the argument towards passing the cost down to the homeowners versus if we were to pass the cost down to the lots?
Oh, what's the benefit?
So what?
Can you
I guess I don't see why the cost just wouldn't be passed down per lot. Is there an argument or a benefit for it being passed down to homeowners? Residents?
Not from my perspective. I think it should have always been per lot. And I think it was just a matter of what we came to understand was, I think with the past finance director, that the billing was I think it was just a simpler process of making sure it could be included with somebody's utility bill. And I just, from what I understood, it could have been done with the lots. It just wasn't implemented like that through the past finance department.
The past finance department didn't think they could bill without having a water tap on site. Not then, but before then. And when it was discussed, it was too much of a problem, something to create new bills for a new commodity. And so that's where it ended. It was discussed, I remember being at the meetings, It just never went anywhere because we couldn't get the finance department to create bills. The new finance director, Ms. Kowski, says she can do bills. So that reason is no longer there. And I had these discussions personally with the finance director, and that's how I'm not relating secondhand. I was told we can't do the billing because our program only goes where there's a water tap. So we pretend there's a water tap there. No, so it ended there.
Dean, this is Merle. Do you anticipate any opposition to the price increase from the residents of the two subdivisions?
Well, obviously on Brandon's Gate, if we go per lot, it's really, that really then comes down to the developers starting to have to pay that additional money. Actually, if it's per lot at Brandon's Gate, if you see the price actually goes down from $693 to $550. So I don't think any of those household residents will have issue. It's comes down to who owns the remaining lots. And that's probably more likely the developers, and then the rodeo subdivision, I think it's a pretty big increase if you look at from a percentage basis from $5 to $10.20. But I think in the whole concept of from $60 to $122.40, I think when you look at that breakdown per month, when you look at other utility bills, I don't see that as a huge increase overall in somebody's overall budget when they look at their annual budget for a year. And you can say it as well. I'm one of those homeowners at rodeo that's going to be impacted by this. And I am trying to look at it as, from a city employee standpoint and as a resident that lives in one of these subdivisions.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Dean. Appreciate your presentation.
You bet. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, next item on our agenda is the executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations and/or instructing negotiators under CRS section 24-6 4024E regarding the dispatch center contract. I move that we go into executive session for the purpose of regarding the dispatch center contract. We will pause this meeting, go to executive session. We will return afterwards. Thank you.
The one of two ways.
I think that would-
Pissed that we don't do the pledge.
I just think it's a better way to do it. It makes it feel more, normal.
We'll do the pledge after the consent agenda.
Once we open it up. Okay.
As soon as it's voted on, the chief will let them know to open the doors.
Should we just like pause for a minute and let everybody kind of come in, settle, and then
Kind of what I thought.
pick it up after that?
So they don't say, oh, you didn't give us a chance to speak.
Exactly.
We weren't in here.
Okay.
We'll conclude the executive session. The time is now 7:34, and the executive session has been concluded. Participants in this executive session were Rachel Medina, Michael J. Levy, Arlena Yazzie, Amy Huckins, David Rainey, Robert Dobry, Orly Lucero, Mike Green, John Doherty, and Vern Knuckles. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go to the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next item agenda is return to the workshop. We will adjourn the workshop at this time and open the regular session. Okay. We'll